Welcome back to SGNN News Brief. Today, Tuesday, December the 2nd, 2025, and this is your U.S. morning news brief covering topics from yesterday's headlines, overnight headlines, and what is making news in the U.S. This morning. We will hit on some foreign policy news, some immigration news, news on the economy, and with news about a major winter storm hitting parts of the US today, and also the solemn, tragic mass shooting that happened in California. And we'll close with the White House holiday look and a spot on Team USA. So let's dive in. So, as top story for today, there is growing outrage over a U.S. military strike on suspected drug smuggling boat near Venezuela. So the White House confirmed that a U.S. Navy admiral ordered a second follow-up strike in September, hitting survivors from the original attack in the Caribbean. Officials insist that the operation was lawful and within the admiral's authority, but lawmakers on both parties have opened congressional reviews, and they are demanding for a classified briefing with what happened and who gave the orders. So, on the other side, human rights advocates and some legal experts are now warning that the second strike could be investigated as a potential war crime, especially if survivors were not possessing or posing any imminent threat to the US. So today we will be watching that story closely as it unfolds. And closely related to that story, President Donald Trump met with his advisors yesterday, and his people within his administration have ramped up pressure on Venezuelan's president, Nicolas Maduro. And the Reuters reporting this morning that the White House is weighing tougher sanctions and possible further military operations as part of a broader campaign to squeeze the Maduro's administration and its government. So this comes really as critics argue the controversial boat strike is really an effective warning shot to regional drug networks and Venezuelan's regime, while opponents, on the other hand, in Congress say it's a risk, it's dangerous, and it is escalating tensions already in the Caribbean. So let's go to Ukraine. Turning on to Ukraine, diplomatic efforts are in overdrive. Trump special envoy and real estate developer Steve Wynkoff is heading into high-profile talks with Russia's President Vladimir Putin in Moscow today. And this is after earlier discussions with the Ukrainian officials in Florida. So at the same time, Ukraine President Zelensky, speaking in Europe, said revisions to the US-backed peace plan looked better, in quotes. But he repeated that Ukraine's territory and its integrity is non-negotiable. And what does this mean? That he would not recognize Russian control over the occupied eastern regions of Ukraine. So European allies are also watching this closely. They are worried that any deal that cements Russia's gains could actually reward aggression and reshape security across the European continent. So let's come back home on immigration issues. Immigration policy is tightening again. So after the shooting that happened last week in DC of two National Guard members allegedly by an Afghan national, the Trump administration announced a slate of new restrictions. So according to the Associated Press, the administration is pausing some asylum decisions. They are re-examining green card applicants and applications for people and in quote from certain countries of concern, certain countries of concern in quote. So they are also freezing visa programs, including visas for Afghan nationals who assisted the U.S. War effort. So, on the other hand, civil rights groups warn that the changes would punish communities, larger communities, just because of the aspect or actions of one suspect. And this could leave some U.S. allies that needed help stranded and in danger. So let's talk about the winter storm. So if you are in the northeast, especially in northern New Jersey, heads up for you. The governor, Phil Murphy, has declared a state of emergency effective from 5 a.m. Eastern Time this morning for several northern counties as a significant winter storm moves in with heavy snow slates and freezing rain. So residents are being urged to avoid unnecessary travels, to monitor local forecast and prepare for dangerous conditions and potential power outages as storms sweep through the border and going through New Jersey and New York metro areas. So let's talk about Wall Street. Stocks tumbled out of the gate yesterday to kick off December 1. The S&P 500 fell around 0.5%. The Dow dipped about 0.9%, and the Nasdaq slipped about 0.4% on Monday. This gave back some of last week's rally. So Bitcoin and other high flying assets also saw deeper losses at the close of trade yesterday, Monday. So at the policy level, state and local governments are starting to confront the fallout of the Trump era tariff on ongoing trade tensions, especially for small businesses and small scale manufacturers that supply large industries in the country. And on one widely discussed analysis this morning argues that the states will need an, in quote, targeted grants and tax incentives to tariff off these firms production and to keep the production alive. So the question is, there is uncertainty both for investors and small business owners heading into 2026. In election and voting news, 4 Republican-led states have reached a settlement with the federal government over access to voter citizenship data. The states include Florida, Indiana, Iowa, and Ohio. They had sued the Department of Homeland Security, arguing that they needed federal citizenship records to verify voter rolls and prevent non citizens from voting. The settlement ends the dispute that began during the Biden's administration and has continued to the Trump years. So supporters see the deal as a win for election integrity, while critics warn it could enable new forms of intimidation and wrongful purging if the data is misused. So, on another sad note, a tragic story out of California. Authorities are still searching for suspects after a mass shooting at a toddler's birthday party at Stockton. This shooting left four people dead, three of them children, and at least 11 people injured. The attack happened at a banquet hall before the family was about to cut the cake. Investigators believe that it was a targeted attack involving multiple shooters, and they have recovered firearms, including weapons found on the rooftop of the building. So the FBI has offered up to 50,000 US dollar reward for information leading to any form of arrest or conviction. And local leaders are calling this a gang-related massacre, even as investigators are cautioning about any public labeling. So, on a lighter note, from Washington, First Lady Melania Trump unveiled yesterday this year's White House Christmas decor. And she joined Second Lady Usha Vance at Joint Base Andrews to assemble care packages for deployed service members overseas. The theme this year is really that nostalgic theme of family centered holiday look, with wreaths and trees decorating the White House as December begins. The event highlighted the sacrifices of military families, with spouses writing holiday messages, packaging snacks and treats for troops that are overseas and who will be spending Christmas overseas. So on the sports front, the U.S. women's national soccer team closed out 2025 with a 2-0 win over Italy in their last international friendly of the year. The first half goals came from Katerina Macario and Jaden Shaw, who sealed the confident victory and capped a strong finish for the national team as they get into recess and prepare for next year. So this is a solid sign of momentum heading into next year's tournament and qualifying campaign. And that's your U.S. morning news brief. Today, Tuesday, December 2nd, covering major headlines from yesterday, this morning, and overnight stories, including stories from Venezuela, talking about the boat strike that is controversial according to many, the Ukraine peace talks, immigration crackdown following the shooting of two GATT members in the US, in DC last week, talking about the strikes that are happening, looking at gun violence in the US, looking at what happened in California yesterday. And if you are in the US, in parts of New Jersey, New York, be warm, be safe. And the governor of New Jersey say, stay at home. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next news brief.